Hello all, and welcome back to the Minecraft Scorched Earth mod development vlog. In this video I want to talk about modularity, breaking things down into reusable chunks wherever possible. Not only to save time, but also to build a sort of style. At this point, everything's still pretty simple, but for things to grow, especially similar things, at a rate that'll allow for quicker progression, it'd be good if they were just sort of components that I can stick together, or at the very least use as a kind of template. And so, for the purposes of what I did in the previous video, I started with the whole leg as a kind of template piece, but it doesn't have to be the whole leg, obviously. It could just be parts that make up the leg, and then you could actually combine them parts in different ways to make even more complicated legs or other things. So rather than fabricating everything bespoke, we have a kind of piece box with all the pieces in that we can grab and use, even for just prototyping if need be, but they'll be there, and so I can just grab them and throw them in there and get things, get things coming together that way. And so that's the kind of strategy that I'm going to go for, based on, right now, on what I'm thinking. Everything's subject to change on a whim. Terms and conditions do apply. If you didn't read small print, you've had it, all that kind of stuff. But as of right now, we're all in, 100% committed, with no plans to change, ever. And that goes for all of us. So obviously, this is not an example of a highly complicated part, but let's just, test the theory. And obviously it's going to work, because, well, I didn't come up with it or anything, It's just a way I use in other things a lot. So anything really, with coding you make reusable functions and methods and things. In music you have riffs and things like, scales and melodies and arpeggios, and you can break an arpeggio up into smaller little runs of notes. Get one flurry of notes nice and smooth, and then move on to the next flurry of notes, and then when you've got them nice and smooth, you practice trying to bridge them together, all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing, the exact same thing. Yeah, chunking. And it's also very befitting into with Minecraft and chunks and all that kind of thing, So it's in theme, but yeah, something like that. Now we've got like a corner piece where we could change the axis of rotation, or we could connect one thing to another thing. Yeah, we could have that and that. Right. Okay, I've got an idea. Something I could do for a little test. In my haste to push ahead and learn as much as possible as quickly as possible, I knew there was something I'd be forgetting, and it's the pivot tool. I've been changing the pivot point and things over on the side over there, and using the center pivot button, and that little hacky way of doing things has got me this far, but now I've rediscovered the pivot tool again. I'm conscious of it from now on. So right now I'm trying to fathom the best way of going about trying to make a wheel. And I don't expect the wheel will be very good, so I call it a crappy wheel. But for those of you that are expecting a little bit more, well, maybe there'll be a crappy wheel version too, and that'll be a little bit better. Okay, we're getting something, See, I started with everything being in bunches of lots of little cubes, but that is just not very efficient. However, it is more flexible obviously, so it will enable me to put more little pieces between other pieces and stuff. But because of how inefficient it is, the idea is to try and simplify them sections down into just one square, if you know what I mean, or cuboid or whatever, wherever is possible. So them four inside this square can be removed, but I'm not going to do that right now because I'm still experimenting. Those old guide pieces can be removed now, they're annoying. So yeah, I just use 3x3 sort of squares of cubes, and it's just so that I know that I can get a bit of shape into the wheel. Because squares and wheels, you know, it's kind of like try and square a wheel, or a wheel a square. I mean, a circle a square. Getting in there with the pivot tool, making sure it's as centered as possible, really. And you know, now I've rediscovered the pivot tool, I think I can now do the sliding bone thing that I was talking about. You know, I was so bothered about getting like V, S and R stuck in, you know, the hotkeys, keyboard shortcuts, with everything else. I totally forgot about P, and therefore totally ignored the pivot tool from that point onwards. How embarrassing. That's it. I just don't think I can take it anymore. I'm quitting the mod because I was very silly and I made a fool of myself. Obviously, it's not the first time that I've made a fool of myself, so I'm not going anywhere, and that's whether you like it or not. Well, it's spinning, it's rotating around, the crappy wheel. Okay then, okay. Let's just throw something together for an idea. You know, just like a skateboard or something, a really poor rendition of a skateboard. So obviously I've copied them around, but because I've copied them, the rotation, I'll just fix that. And voila. Oh yes. Boom shang-a-lang. That's the ticket right there. So yeah, as this like selection of components grows, I can probably knock more complicated things together much quicker. And this was a little test of that theory, and also to explore the idea of wheels. For some of the things that I want to do in this mod, I'm going to have to look into it at some point, and I want better wheels than this. I mean, these are crappy wheels. You know, crappy wheel Mark 1. Yeah, we've got to keep that convention alive, Mark 1. Oh yes, oh yes. So yeah, that's my crappy little skateboard, or whatever. It's a vehicle of some kind, but no, there's no suspension or anything. But maybe eventually. It's just how detailed do you really want to get, or need to get? Because not only is it the more complicated the model, the harder it is to display on the screen, but it's also a case of the workload to work with the models goes up. So it's, as I say, I'm trying to get that happy medium of high enough poly where I can do some cool stuff with the shapes and add details that might leave a little bit to your imagination but are representative of what they're trying to be, while at the same time trying not to be so overly detailed that it's just a nightmare to work with. And also, sometimes things can look a bit too detailed. I don't know. Anyway folks, I'm going to wrap it up here for this episode. If you like this content, feel free to comment, like, share and subscribe. You know the deal. And until next time, this has been Tactical Panther. Out.